weekend, folks. If you're coming along, please bring your mobile phones. Please get as much footage as you want. Please do feel free to spread it out on the internet. That's what it's all about, showing that there is support here in Scotland for our United Kingdom. And goodness me, how is it all going to go? Because the National yesterday, don't get too worried about this, folks, because a lot will change between now and then, but the National yesterday says poll predicts huge 18-seat yes majority. Now, the idea there is that a majority would be 65 seats out of 129 seats. And the National, and it is the National after all, they were predicting that the SNP would get, let me just check, was it 65 seats plus the Greens getting a huge number, which made no sense to us whatsoever. They were suggesting something like, and I don't want to get this wrong, but they were suggesting something like the Greens were going to get 18 seats, which would require them to get more than 2 on every regional list, if not also win some first past the post seats. And there's literally no way that's going to happen, folks. You can take it from me. The Greens, in fact, will be in trouble, I think, at this election. Sure, they've got a little bit of a bounce from the Zach Polanski's down in England, and people will maybe vote for them on the basis of they like his jib, but there's no way they're going to get those kind of seats because in large areas of Scotland, they don't have that much support. Yes, here it is. It says, the SNP are projected to win 65 seats. Well, that would be a majority, with the Scottish Greens in second on 18 and Reform on 17 in third place, with Scottish Labour in fourth on 13. The Tories and Lib Dems are projected 8 MSPs each. Well, that's such an outlying poll that it simply cannot be taken. It cannot be taken seriously. It's a survey of 2,100 people by Lord Ashcroft and published in Holyrood magazine. Well, I cannot believe that would be likely at all. But who can say? Who can say? What we can say is, if you don't want that to happen, make sure you're registered to vote. Get out there and get registered. Everybody needs to be registered by the 20th of April if you want any chance of voting at this election. So that's something that everybody can do, is vote. And sure, if you don't like any of them, don't vote for any of them. But at the end of the day, you have to vote. You do have to vote if you want to have a say. And voting's not perfect, but at the end of the day, it's the best that we've got. It's the best way so far that we've found in the modern world of holding complex societies together. And we've been able to do it hitherto to a point here in the Western world, and particularly in the United Kingdom. Will we continue to be able to do that? Well, that's the £6 million question, isn't it? What with diverse groups of people, as they say, coming into the country and automatically being given the vote, whether or not we can hold our democracy together in the long run, where enough of us are content to be outvoted. You know, in the past, we were content to be outvoted because we had enough in common with the people who were outvoting us. In parts of the United Kingdom, that is kind of changing, it has to be said, that feeling, which, well, that's not good for democracy in the long run. In fact, I was looking at an article just earlier today. British citizenship is a privilege, yet we are constantly devaluing it. By David Frost back in February the 27th. And he was pointing out, as we point out on this program a lot, that when you actually dive into the whole concept of British citizenship, it's extremely loose and badly put together, and no proper, coherent, consistent thought has ever been given to it. Certainly not in the last 50 years. I mean, I think it only became a concept, citizenship, at the turn of the last century. But ever since then, no real proper thought has gone into what constitutes a British citizen and what should they get as a consequence of being a British citizen, and how long should it take? For example, as we don't tire of saying, voting-wise, anybody can vote at British general elections, providing you're a citizen or a citizen of the Republic of Ireland or a citizen of 55, actually 56 Commonwealth countries. You're automatically given the vote. So that means that anybody coming in from India or Pakistan immediately gets the vote in this country. In Scotland, at devolved elections, everybody in the world can vote if they are legally resident. They don't even need to be British citizens or even Commonwealth citizens. So that's not a serious country. If in your country anybody can vote, just provided they're legally here, that's not a serious country. Now, you could argue that's democratic, but it's certainly not nationalistic. There's no nationalistic idea behind that concept. That's just a globalist concept. So if you truly believe in the nation and in its citizenship, then you have to change all of that. And where's John Swinney on these kind of matters? Where's even our Prime Minister? Where have any of our Prime Ministers, Tory or Labour, ever been on these essential matters of nationality and citizenship? Absent without leave. It's incredible. It's incredible how unserious a country we are when you really get down to it. And I'd noticed this like way back when we started A Force for Good, and we started looking at how the union is held together and how the union could be broken up and all these sorts of things, and realizing that our politicians knew nothing about that. And there wasn't even any books, even the constitutional books, like you buy a book on the British Constitution, it won't even really talk about the union as such, or what the union means for the concept of Britain, the nation. And so we had to start literally from the beginning to really write out the specifics, and that eventually gave rise to One Big Country, a big book for the union, volume 1. And all you need to do, folks, is go to Amazon. Let's get the Amazon link up there and get that. It's only $9.99, and that's the first in the series. And that basically explains what devolution was meant to be about, how it went wrong, how to sort it, how to get a mandate, and basically articulating the cause of unity, one big country. If you're interested in the whole idea of Britain, the nation, then we are the people to send to tell you all about it. To tell you all about it. Now, folks, let's say hello to some of our friends. Let's get our crowdfunder ticker going along the bottom. Now, folks, remember our man Niall is coming in at 7:30. Actually, we might bring Niall on a little earlier in order to talk about a lot of things. What's on your mind tonight? Yay, I think I'm going to have to do this banner. I can't find it. That's the problem. Just hold on a second, folks. Hold on a second. Hey, where's our crowdfunder? Here we are, right down at the bottom. Derek's first in. Good evening, everyone. We need you all to attend on the 28th of March in Edinburgh. Let's show the SNP we've had enough of independence. Their independence moaning. Enough is enough. Absolutely. Oksana is going to be missing out on Saturday since she's not in Scotland at the moment. Hello to Catherine. Hello to Rafa from Belfast, Northern Ireland. Good to see you in the house, Rafa, who says it's time to remove John Swinney from the Scottish Parliament. That would be great if we managed to do that. Oksana says people that she speaks to are sick of immigration levels, so they won't vote SNP. I think that that's also the case. Now, I read in the National last week that it said, actually, this doesn't sound likely, but it's true. A poll said that 1/3 of SNP voters would consider voting for reform, and it would be around those sorts of issues. And so, yeah, John Swinney's missing a trick when he basically just ignores that issue entirely, or rather encourages even more open borders. Stephen Bailey says that, as I agree, most polls are indeed showing that the SNP will fail to get a majority. Dominic makes a good point. He says, I don't think there is a mainstream party that is right about everything, as the anti-war parties want more immigration and the anti-immigration parties want more war. That's an interesting observation, and I would tend to agree that that's how it seems, which is pretty ridiculous. You know, there was an event outside Holyrood last Saturday, and one side was shouting, "Stop the boats," and the other side was shouting, "Stop the bombs." And I thought, well, you know what? We need to do both, because it's the bombs which are driving the boats our way. And so we need to basically do both. If we stop the bombs, we can stop the boats. And stopping the boats also means stopping the bombs. So there has to be that understanding of where the connection is. And another thing related to that is Keir Starmer has been fairly reluctant to get Britain involved in the Middle East conflict. But if he had been all for it, or if we had a Conservative government that was all for getting Britain involved in the conflict, then the SNP support would be through the roof. I mean, I can assure you of that. It would be through the roof if there was a government in Westminster that was wanting more war. Because for those of us who remember what happened yesterday, it was Tony Blair's support of the Iraq war, which basically destroyed the Labour Party in Scotland. And ever since that point, the SNP got on the up, and they won the next election, the 2007 one. Basically, and that had a lot to do with Alex Salmond opposing Britain's membership of the Iraq war. So British involvement in overseas conflict that's not directly related to Britain is always bad for unionist parties. You can take that to the bank, and we recognized that a long time ago. And I just hope that more unionist people will come to grasp that going forward. Rafa's got something to say to the British government. He says it's full of cowards and incompetent politicians who hate British citizens. This should not be occurring. We need to bring back our British Bill of Rights. Interesting point. Dan, the Lionheart, says we need restore Britain. Well, that's another one. That's Rupert Lowe's party, to repair the union and make this country great again. And whoever is making the country great again needs to avoid enabling such easy dismemberment of their nation. Yeah, the SNP people are always complaining about, why can't we, if we get 65 seats, why can't we just have another referendum? Well, the reason you can't is because you probably get your 65 seats on a minority of the Scottish electorate. And so why should a minority of the Scottish electorate enable the country to be set on a route that could lead to it being broken up? That wouldn't be a good idea. So the SNP types, they always forget that there's a whole lot of people out there who don't actually agree with them. And they forget that we also have to have a point, and we also have to be involved in whatever decision is made. And we go into that actually in one of the chapters here in One Big Country, when we show why the SNP so-called mandates are not actually proper mandates. And hey, if you're SNP, you'll actually find out how to get a proper mandate in here. We actually give that away. We actually tell you how you get it as well, if you're that interested, SNP people. Rafa's asking a question. Are we supporting the British Bill of Rights to be restored to replace the Human Rights Act in the UK Parliament? Our country needs a strong codified constitution. Okay, well, a couple of points there. I think when you say British Bill of Rights, my understanding is that people such as was mainly been conservatives who have said, oh, we need to scrap the Human Rights Act and replace it with the British Bill of Rights. I am not convinced that there would be a whole lot of difference between the two. It might be a distinction without a difference in reality. It could be the case that we should do that, but one would need to know what the proposals were and how one sufficiently differed from another. With the Human Rights Act, I think the main problem, the one that's always put up, is the issue about not being able to deport people who should be deported. That seems to be the main problem that people have with the Human Rights Act, and indeed that I would have with the Human Rights Act as well. And I think that that can be corrected. We explained how to do that, in fact, in our Protect Our Country, A Big Book for the Union, Volume 2, which you can also get from Amazon. So there are ways in which you can adjust the Human Rights Act to make it easier to deport people. If you did that, then you might find that the complaints about the Human Rights Act would not be as great as they are at the moment, because that's the one that grates. That article kind of grates on people. So it could be adjusted, or the whole act could be abolished and replaced with something else. But at the end of the day, one would just have to wait and see what was being suggested. Hello to Derek and to Alan. Thanks to Christopher there, who says, One Big Country is very highly recommended. It should be read by anyone interested in understanding our great country, the United Kingdom. I think we got our screenshot there, Christopher, definitely. Hello to Scotland Scorpion. Stephen says we need to get a grip on this uncontrolled mass immigration and genuinely stop and reverse woke and its march through the institutions of the UK. Well, the first step is to get people of that mind elected to positions of power and influence where they can articulate such matters, because without words in the first place, there can be no action. And so everybody's chance will be in 6 weeks' time at the Scottish election on Thursday, the 7th of May, where our goal, our not inconsiderable goal, is to get the SNP out now. And we're having a rally to that end this Saturday, 28th of March, outside St Giles on the Royal Mile, 11 for 11:30. Come along, bring your flags, and we're going to be rallying in exactly the same place as John Swinney and Ross Greer are assembling their fan club in order before they march down the Royal Mile. So we're going to be in close proximity. Authorities know all about it. The police have been making sure everything's going to be okay. So nothing to be concerned about. Come along and basically fly your flags for our country. It's going to be a good one. And bring your mobile phones and get as much footage as you want and fire it out over the internet. Good stuff. Now, we have our guest tonight. I'm just going to bring him on, actually. We're 2 or 3 minutes prior to 7:30, but we'll bring him on anyway. Folks, if you're watching on TikTok, you won't see any of this. So you'd need to go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/UK A Force for Good. Owen says, first thing you have said, I agree with you, no to war. Hi to Chris. And somebody says, vote Workers' Party, George Galloway. Well, goodness me, we can maybe talk about George Galloway with our guest, because I know our guest was acquainted with Gorgeous George back in 2021. AI summary. The AI summary has already summarized it, saying, discussing a rally against the SNP on the Royal Mile. Share your thoughts. Toran Albanach says, how much funding do the Unionist supporters in Scotland accept from Israel? Well, A Force for Good doesn't accept money from any countries except the British Isles. I can't speak for any other groups, but I can't imagine there's that many Unionist groups that we don't know of. Free Scotland from England, says Tim Brown. Well, maybe not. Free Scotland from England. Come on, guys. What world are you living in? This is 2026. Get with the program. Now, folks, I'm going to have to say goodbye to TikTok because we're going over to see our guest. And so we'll see you next week on TikTok. Folks, please say hello to our man, Niall.
Hello.
Hello there, Niall.
How's things?
Very well, very well. It's a busy time for us all, and we're looking forward to the rally. You're going to be speaking at it. And have you got some ideas of what you might be talking about?
So, I mean, I attended this rally last Saturday, the Unite the Clans rally. And
Oh, yeah.
Again,
How did that go?
I mean, it was fantastic. I thought, the police done their job well. There was a large amount of what we'd call Antifa or black masked figures,
Right.
shouting abuse, attacking people on our side. But overall, the speakers were fantastic. It was a general feeling of just bonding, coming together to sort of combat evil. Most people are concerned, and what I want to say is that the United Clans thing, it was what is being participating, but then also sort of observing the whole thing. It felt like it was a gathering of the working class, more so than I've seen at any other rally. You've got speakers there was a 13-year-old boy spoke at it, actually. I don't know if we can find the video of that, but I was really impressed with this young lad. And again, the people are getting younger at this thing. It's the first time I've ever seen a young boy speak at one of these events, and it was really quite inspiring. But again, it's the overall theme seemed to have been about safety, about the fact that we can't live like this anymore. You can't force change the demographics of a country where suddenly you one day it's Scotland and the next day you come in your flat, you open the door and it's Africa, and there's people walking around carrying things on their heads. There's people selling nuts and bolts in the barras. It's too much for people to bear, and for you're speaking to a lot of people just out and about. Just the strangest thing is happening, that a lot of people are just voting reform based on the anti-immigration sentiment alone, and they're going to get in huge numbers. I've seen your comments, and there's been a lot of great comments today, but the Restore Britain thing, I think it's maybe just a bit too late for them to run in the Scottish election, but the next best thing is reform. So I think with the absence of any other party sort of with this rhetoric, reform is going to ramp in and become the second biggest party in Scotland. And today as well, with this whole the last day in the Holyrood calendar, 5 years worth, and what do they want to do? What do they want to spend their time on? Well, John Swinney wants to spend his time bringing up Malcolm Offord, who's the leader of the Reform Party. He wants to spend his time trying to drag him over the coals for a joke he made 10 years ago. Is that a good way, a good use of your time? Is that, is this what we're giving the Scottish Government money for to waste our time like this? When, again, I'm pointing out that we've got on average 8 rapes per day in Scotland, and it's only going to get worse. A lot of the people at this United Clans rally, they're all over Scotland, Falkirk, Aberdeen, all over. And the things that I'm hearing that are happening in Aberdeen are absolutely frightening. Falkirk is... it was a bit annoying that, Reform had a conference in Falkirk, but then didn't go to the Gladden Hotel. It was a bit of a stick in the craw for me. But at the same time, they're saying the right things. We're just... the general theme is that, people are really worried about the safety of people with all these migrants who we don't know where they're from. We don't, it's from alien cultures, alien education system, doesn't translate to living peacefully alongside other Scots. So,
yeah, it's getting more and more kind of ridiculous as well, because just in the last few weeks, we've been noticing the power of AI as a new means of running offices, especially. And I know you've got some sort of interest in studying this as well. And it's it's actually very concerning for anybody who is thinking about this. And so many white collar jobs could be wiped out.
Yeah.
And there'll always be white collar jobs, and AI will create some new ones, but there's a lot that can simply just be replaced by AI. And so that's white collar Scottish jobs are going to become fewer. Now, blue collar jobs tradesmen, hospitality, anything that involves face-to-face interaction, that's probably pretty safeguarded, I should imagine, at least for a long time anyway. Although AI can teach you how to fix your own toilet or shower system if you wanted to be bothered, but most people aren't wanting to be bothered. They'll just bring in the tradesman. But white collar jobs, it's like literally they could go out of
I think we're looking
destroyed.
at
So why on earth are we bringing in tens of thousands of people when it's going to be very quickly, like within the next 6 months, year, 2 years, we're going to have very serious employment issues. So it's madness is what it is.
The economic turmoil that the world is going to go through in the next couple of years is it'll be unlike anything we've ever seen in our entire lives. It'll be bigger than the 2008 financial crash. It'll be bigger than anything that we could even possibly posit. It's really dangerous. I've been delving into AI, just try to see what the next. It's almost like the advent of the internet. Whereas if you're in on the ground level, you could potentially make a heck of a lot of money, especially if you're sort of if you're an architect building apps and that sort of thing. But we're looking at an extinction level event for white collar jobs. Anything that involves sort of regular emailing, back and forth, organizing things, that's all gone. People are replacing staff of an office block of 40, 50 people with 1 or 2 AI agents. So we are looking at, and it just gets scarier every day. It's accelerating as well. There's new updates to these programs happening every single hour, and it's an AI arms race. I think Nvidia the other day, said they had achieved what's AGI, which is a big difference to just normal AI processing. AGI is like artificial general intelligence, where it just learns on its own. So we're into the unknown as far as I'm concerned economically. And like you're saying, why are we bringing in waves upon waves of Africans and sub-Saharan Africans? It's just it's unbelievable that this is happening, especially when, even I think AI is even sort of hiring people to do like in real life activities, go there, do this. So we're beyond we're through the looking glass as far as AI is concerned. But let's sort of backtrack and get onto what we're here to speak about is the rally, and this and please do tell us in the comments if you're going to come and stand with us. But the reason we're at St. Giles is because they've denied you access, or no access, but they've denied you the privilege of speaking outside Holyrood, which would have been a lot safer for both parties. Let's be honest. There's a huge big gap between St. Giles and Holyrood, but now they've got us. It's very close quarters. They're going to be marching past us. All the serpents and the slime balls of Scottish public life are going to be there. John Swinney's going to be there. The architect of the RSHP. He implants that into the Scottish curriculum, asking a whole load of sexual questions to kids. Implanting this LGBT teaching and ideology into schools. He done that as education secretary. And what's his name? Anwar, Scotland's premier race lawyer is going to be there, who's spent decades at the public tea on all these inquiries, the Sheku Bayou inquiry, and now he's representing this Mr. Bosch. The man who's stabbed, who's deceased, by the way. He's representing the family of this Mr. Bosch, who stabbed 6 people in Glasgow and then was shot dead. It doesn't bear thinking about, but we've got Ross Greer going to be there. We've got the whole, the collective noun for snakes, a den of snakes. is going to be marching past us or slithering past. And it's your opportunity, it's your time to stand up and shame them publicly as they're walking past. These people, they support men and women's prisons. Like, just slow down and stop. Like, they've done so much harm to Scotland. They introduced all this trans ideology and ruined so many lives in Scotland. And that's still happening. People are still undergoing the trauma for that. It doesn't even thinking about it. The misery that these people have caused it's incalculable. You couldn't put it down on paper. And again, the money that they've wasted is, well, you could probably put a number on that, but to me, it's just telephone numbers now. 200 million on ferries that don't go, and now it's even more money to get them repaired. And who suffers? It's always Scots taxpayers that suffer. Again, taking it back to the rally on Saturday, what I thought was very interesting was we had quite a high predominantly unionist sort of group, but a lot of them as well. I spoke to a lot of Scottish nationalists there that voted for independence, and even interestingly, you had unionists there that would say, look, if it meant kicking all the migrants out of Scotland, I'd be laying the first brick on the wall on the border. People are really, really upset about this, and it comes down to the protection and safety of our people. Every hotel resident poses a danger to us. Everyone. Yes. And they should not be there. If I was in charge, if the Home Office was sending them up, I would send them all to an island, or I'd go to war with the Home Office, because they will not be staying anywhere where they could possibly cause harm to Scottish citizens.
Yeah, this goes back to my comments earlier in the program where I said Britain's not a serious nation. No. I am a British patriot, and I will always support our United Kingdom. But I've realized in time it's for us to actually make Britain a serious nation, because it's not one at the moment. I mean, any country that allows it's an island, and we allow people to enter illegally across the English Channel just because of some nonsense that was written on some United Nations document 75 years ago. Yeah. The idea that we allow that, instead of just saying, if you cross the channel in a dinghy, you're breaking the law and you're going to prison, don't do it. That's what a serious country would do. But the fact that we don't even do that tells us we're not serious. And we have not been serious. We've not been serious since the end of World War II. This has not been a serious country. And it's about making it a serious country again. It's about understanding that the United Kingdom is a country. It's got British citizens, respecting our citizenship, respecting our laws, defending our borders. And once you start doing that, which we've never done, and, I read a lot of left-wing stuff, and the left-wing people are not wrong on a lot of what they say, believe it or not. And they do put the point, which I've come to believe is correct, is that the British state is run by a moneyed establishment.
100%.
And simply just cares about the stock market, cares about the bond markets, and basically, or something in many cases, cares about foreign countries more than they care about Britain. And they're basically the ones that run the show. And yeah, there is a class element there as well, in the sense that they've been born into positions that you and I will never get access to. But it's definitely the case that we don't have serious people. We've never had people like us running the country, and we've been gate kept out by a media, which is also part of the problem. But that's not to say that we can't sort this out. I mean, I do believe that we can, but what we're witnessing at the moment is the consequence of Britain never being a serious country.
I hadn't prepared a speech for anything at this rally, but I got up there and I had one of these lines that it just come to me. But the people in Holyrood, no the staff, no the caterers, people in there, they would have thousands of people raped if it meant 1% of economic growth. Yeah. This is the thing. What is this?
Yeah.
And again,
mental illness.
It's a mental illness. It's worse than that. It's psychopathy. It's sociopathy. It's insane beyond belief. But the main point is, it's just it's like it's hard to put a finger on exactly why this has happened. But the interests of the Scottish people, the British people, it's been sold to the highest bidder. It's gone. And we need to bring that back. But we don't. The working class, they don't care about the financials of a migrant hotel. They don't care if it maybe brings a 0.1% economic growth. They don't care at all. They don't give a toss about the financials. It's all about the safety of the people. And this is what the working class are saying. And really, that's what it boils down to.
Absolutely. You look at John Swinney, and he will argue for more immigration and open borders. And that's simply because he doesn't want to argue against it. He doesn't want to admit into his consciousness that he may have to say, no, you can't come in. He doesn't want to ever have to make that decision about anybody. So he just says, well, let's just make excuses for open borders. And you can see that because his excuses are very, very poor. And one of them is growth, as you just said, encouraging economic growth, as if that's even a good thing in itself, or if that's even possible.
They'll say, oh, we need the migrants because we've got a declining population, and yet they'll promote trans in everyone, which is not going to have a great effect on births. They'll have no incentives to get married, no incentives at all. So again, they're not creating the environment to promote growth, to promote birth. Sorry. So
yes.
So on one hand, they're saying yes, we need the migrants for growth, and yet at the same time they're holding down the native population and their propensity for population boom.
Absolutely.
And this decline in population chat as well. Like if the circumstances were right, we could have a booming population again. I think about my family as well. My gran was the youngest of 10. The youngest of 10. And all of them worked in the mine. None of them were rich. It's bizarre that we've come from that stage to where we are now. We might have been serious just after World War I, World War II. Now it's gone.
Yeah. Good point. No, good point about the mine as well. I was thinking about miners this morning, and just realizing the extent to which that industry was responsible for much of Britain's greatness.
Of course.
Certainly during the 19th century, and never really got credit for it. Never really got credit for keeping the home fires burning, for keeping the steel mills going. All of which depended entirely upon king coal. We need to find a way of kind of remembering that, and of course all the massive tragedies as well that were occurring in the coal mines on a regular basis until quite recently.
Absolutely. I mean, my great granddad died following the High Valleyfield pit disaster. If there's any Fifers listening now, or just look up the High Valleyfield pit disaster. I think it might have been 39 people died instantly and 50 people died, but he died of his injuries afterward, because a lot of people did when they escaped the mine, they died of their injuries afterward. But this was a very dangerous profession. It happened, it was just the way of life back then, I suppose. But
I know, and there were always men with families as well.
Of course,
you just wonder how these communities continued to survive.
Well, High Valleyfield, there was, there would be 2 or 3 people in every street that had died in that pit disaster. And there was fathers working with their sons that died. It was a horrible tragedy. But again, this is our shared sort of ancestry, our shared culture, like everything that we hold dear, our own history is just being trodden upon by the people that are letting in all these people that are just allowing it to happen, and not even allowing it to happen, facilitating it to happen. The RNLI will bring people in. You've got the all the benefits are arriving, and then you've got the golden ticket. Like, what if you make it across the channel? You're going to get a 40 grand paycheck on the way out.
Immediately you become a so-called refugee. Once you get refugee status, you immediately get access to all the benefits that a British citizen gets, which is crazy. And again, that's just because it's written down that they have to in a piece of paper that was written 75 years ago. It's just madness, absolute madness. Let's go back to, by the way, I think a lot of what you talked about there would be good to be talked about on the Royal Mile this Saturday, folks. 28th, outside St Giles Cathedral on the Royal Mile. You'll see myself, Niall, and at least hopefully 6 other speakers as well, many of whom have not spoken at our rallies before. Really looking forward to that. We're doing this in cooperation with our friends over at the We Say It podcast. Nick Mitchell, he will also be giving a speech. And we'll be doing it right beside John Swinney, who will be marching his Scottish fans up to the top of the hill and then back down again, quite literally. That's what he'll be doing. And we're going to be telling him that. I made up a wee song today about that. So you'll be hearing me chanting it at them. So should be good fun. Be there for 11:30. Bring your flags, folks. We can't bring flags for everybody. So bring your flags of the British Isles. No foreign flags. If you're flying a foreign flag, you'll be asked to leave. This is Britain. We're fed up pretending it's the Middle East, okay?
Exactly.
Only British flags. Now, yeah, what do you think? And I'll be interested in your opinion on this, Niall. Your man that you stood with in 2021. Tell us all about that. What has happened to him?
Well,
we're talking about George Galloway, by the way,
of course. You don't need to tell me that. So, in 2021, that was my first entryway into politics. You joined the party, it's pro-union, similar to what it was probably before the advent of ALBA, or it was very similar to ALBA in the way that, if you were pro-independence, you would vote SNP on the constituency, and then you'd vote ALBA on the list. This is how Alex Salmond, wanted it to go, and it would, it would either deliver a pro-independence majority or a pro-union majority. We were the pro-union side, all for unity, and George Galloway was the leader of it. And it was the phrase that was the catchphrase of the whole campaign was "ending the never endum." What a fantastic catchphrase it was! The never endum. Always, it's unbelievable. It was Gorgeous George coined the phrase, and he is a very smart individual, right? But what a phrase it is! The never endum. Absolutely beautiful. But fast forward, 5 years? And now he's supporting Scottish independence. And by the way, in amongst all this time, he's been elected in Batley and Spen. There's been it's not a prorogued parliament, but they've had a new election basically a year after he's been elected in Batley and Spen. He only gets a year, and now he's out again. And now he's come back up to Scotland. Anytime there's an election, he'll be there. If you want to see him, I'd probably just hang out outside the mosques, because that's where he's going to go for his votes. I just think it's a terrible shame, because somebody that you used to look up to, it's just a horrible state of affairs, to be honest. No consistency whatsoever. Just doing what is expedient. Just doing what is best for George. And you'd think way back when he was up at the Senate committee telling the Americans, you went to war on a pack of lies. That was his most famous clip. Millions, tens of millions of views on that. You went to war on a pack of lies, and then to go for that to where he is now, it's not a very nice thing to see, to be honest. But you know, he can do.
Yeah. I wonder why he's doing it, because he's standing for what he calls the Workers' Party, and there's also another left-wing party going to be standing called the Scottish Socialist Party. They didn't stand in 2021. They've stood previously, but they didn't stand in 2021. They're going to be standing in all 8 regions. So they say. We'll find out for sure this next Wednesday evening when the nominations close. But they're going to be standing in every region. So he's going to be competing with them for votes. It's not clear to me at the moment what his unique selling point is, other than the fact that he is George Galloway. And maybe that's really the only unique selling point, because both of these parties now, the Workers' Party and the Scottish Socialist Party, seem to, do believe in separation, Scottish separation. So he's not really crafting any particular new, unique angle, other than, as I say, himself. So I personally don't think they'll do particularly well. They've got no organization up here or anything like that. They'll come very, very far down the list.
And you see that, again, this is why Reform are actually going to perform well. It's not the same tired old faces getting involved, and they're going to repeal the GRR. Oh, yeah, of course, you and everyone else, because everyone knows what a travesty it is. So they'll be knocking on doors and saying, do you support men and women's prisons? No, I don't. Okay, vote for Workers' Party. It is almost, it's laughable. But I think they're going to sort of face a reckoning where they understand that, Scots, they're a bit too long in the tooth to see somebody come in and just change position like that and try to take advantage of it. It's just not going to work. It's not going to function right. Yeah. And believe you me, the whole Alliance for Unity project was purely a ploy to get George Galloway elected. When I was, he stood in the south of Scotland. He stood in the south of Scotland, and it was, we had to do, all these cold calls, political cold calls, which I actually found really fun. But you're phoning people just randomly, on a number bank. Hello there. Would you like to talk about politics for 5 minutes? And I was like, oh my god. So it actually leads to some good conversations. But all the calls, all the candidates were making, all 56 candidates, we had a full roster of candidates. Every single call was being directed to the south of Scotland. Everyone. So I'm campaigning in Glasgow. All my calls are going to Dumfries. The same thing will happen with the Worker Party as well. So it will just be a big ploy to get George elected. And I actually fear for the people involved.
Well, if he's standing, do you know what seat he's standing in?
It'll be the south of Scotland again. It might not. It's probably going to be a sort of more.
I would have thought it would be Glasgow.
It was probably going to be Glasgow. Anyway, pick the area in Scotland that has got the most mosques. That's where he'll be standing.
That'll be Glasgow then.
Yeah.
Good. Well, Niall, it's the top of the hour, and we'll just be closing out at 8 o'clock. But I want to say thanks very much for your thoughts tonight. We didn't get into the Malcolm Offord situation, probably just as well, to be frank. Mm-hmm. That's a bit of a rum topic, if that's the word.
Well, before we go, I mean, it's just to spend the last day of Holyrood after 5 years bringing up a joke that somebody's made at a Burns supper 10 years ago is just laughable. And
well, John Swinney was more annoyed about it than he's ever been annoyed about any of the open borders that Scotland's faced, or any of the grooming problems that Scotland's
exactly.
faced,
See,
or any of the dangerous asylum people who have been convicted,
putting
is
you
concerned.
in the position of First Minister for a second, Alistair, you know what I mean? You would be beside yourself if you knew that there'd be 8 rapes happening every single day under your watch.
Oh, yes, and drug deaths as well, which is something we don't have time to get into, but I know that's something that very much concerns you, and that might be something that you want to talk about as well on Saturday, folks. Saturday being our SNP Out Now rally outside St Giles Cathedral this Saturday, the 28th, 11 for 11:30. Folks, bring your flags of the British Isles and let's tell John Swinney and Ross Greer and Amar Anwar and also the American actor Brian Cox, who's going to be there. Tell them that SNP, your time is up because we're democratically voting you down. We're voting you down. And they'll be there. They'll be just across from us. So, folks, see you then. Niall, looking forward to seeing you there too.
You as well.
Okay. Have a nice rest of your evening. Good stuff, folks. Say thanks to Niall, who's always on form, always got a lot of energy and a lot to say. William says, good point. I've always thought Archie Macpherson's speech saved the Union in 2014. He gave a good speech, which hit home, no doubt, with a lot of people. I vaguely remember it. Gordon Brown gave a good speech. Alistair Darling was on form once or twice as well. Just looking at some comments here. Catherine says Galloway is going for the Muslim and SNP Alba vote. Dominic wonders if it's Galloway's Irish republicanism coming back to the fore again. Alan says that Galloway goes whichever way the wind blows. Dominic says he blocked me when I insulted his hero Che Guevara. That's a good point. We were blocked as well by George Galloway, and we're still blocked, but we've never even engaged with him ever. And to the extent that we have in the past, it's been supportive, related around his support for the UK. But one day we woke up and we were blocked. I think he mass blocked a lot of people at one particular time, and this is going way back to maybe the late 2017, 18, 19 thereabouts. But we're still blocked. Makes no sense. Dominic says that it's Sturgeon's seat that is standing in. Thank you. So that will be Glasgow, South Side. Catherine says, great programme. Angela says she was for independence back then, but she's glad now that we never got it. Can you imagine the SNP running an independent Scotland? Oh, doesn't bear thinking about. Now, folks, we're going to be back, God willing, next Wednesday. Next Wednesday is when nominations close. Up to next Wednesday, people who want to stand at the Scottish election will have been putting in what's called their nominations to the various returning officers. And so at 4:30 next Wednesday, the nominations close, and we'll find out who's standing where. So we should have a program next Wednesday, all going according to plan. Now, one last thing, you will have been noticing a little banner running along the bottom there. That's our crowdfunder, which we've had to run for spring. Never done a spring crowdfunder before, but we had to do one this year because we were running out of cash. Now, I'm glad to say that we had a very generous donor who made up the amount that we needed in one donation. And we are very grateful to that particular person. However, it's not necessarily good that one person carries the whole burden. And so if you go to that crowdfunder.co.uk/spring 2026, you'll see how much money is in the kitty. We've extended it. It's called a stretch target. And if you can afford a fiver or a tenner or 15 quid or 20 or 30, then please pop it in, because every little helps, and it will be used for us and our activism between now and the 7th of May. And it will also be used to, as it explains on the page, to institute a billboard, probably a digital billboard campaign as well between now and then. So all the money will be used for action. And so if you do want to get the SNP out now, and if you can't attend our rally this Saturday, the 28th, outside St. Giles, 11 for 11:30, if you can't do that, then please do consider putting in a fiver or a tenner, or how much you feel that we are worth and how much this effort is worth and how much you can afford, folks. Thank you very much. So it just remains for me to say, until next week, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the King. See you next week.